What's the best way you've seen someone rebel against school rules? We had a French teacher who was really bad and most people barely tolerated. It happened a few times that whoever arrived first would stand outside her door as if waiting for her to show up and unlock it, and the rest of the class would just queue up behind them pretending to believe them. Meanwhile, the teacher would just be sitting inside wondering where her class was. Me and my Spanish class did this once, but the difference was we loved our teacher and just wanted to play a joke on her. We also told her that the whole class was going to skip the next day and she didn't believe us. We skipped, except for maybe 3 kids, and got ice cream instead. We showed up in the end of the period and brought her ice cream too, and she just shook her head. What a woman, she's like a second mom to all of us. I regularly would text my German teacher and ask if she wanted anything from Chick-fil-A on my way back to school. For some reason, she never seemed to mind me being late. I went to a Catholic grade school growing up that had a strict boys' hair length policy. It couldn't touch the collar of your shirt, and I wanted long hair. So the principal came in one day to talk to the class. When she was leaving the room, she called me out for my long hair in front of my classmates. My response was to point to the cross hanging about the door, and I said, Jesus said long hair. She didn't know what to say right away, but then pulled me outside and yelled at me to get it cut. Don't mess with Catholic nuns. You can almost call it a Hail Mary tactic. More of a male hairy tactic, really. Added, goodness, thank you for the gold, kind stranger. Senior year, my school banned jackets. A friend was cold, wore his jacket to lunch, and the VP told him to take it off. Friend pulls out the student handbook and asked where it said he couldn't wear it. VP flips for a while and ends up showing him the or anything the administration seems disruptive clause. Friend rolls his eyes but takes off his coat. The next day, friend comes in with the same tweed sport coat the VP wore every day. Who the hell bans jackets? My school did once. They said it was dangerous if there ever was a fire. How the hell they came to that conclusion, I know not. However, the school was really poorly built with concrete walls and next to no heating. So at some times of the year, the indoor heat fell below 15 Celsius. The Work Environment Authority recommended an indoor temperature of from 20 to 24 Celsius. We told our teacher to basically either let us wear jackets or fix the heating, otherwise we would report them. They let us wear them. Our VP got fired because he banned headbands for guys, but not girls. Spent about 2 months fighting this, which culminated in almost every boy in school putting headbands on during the next school prep rally. They tried to suspend a bunch of us and the parents took it to the school board. He tried to lie and say we never expressed our frustration with this. He had literally hundreds of emails and letters and school announcements that showed it wasn't true. Was quite the show. Back in the 80s, there was one kid in my school was hardcore into the punk scene. Had a bright blue 6-inch high razor thing, stand up straight Mohawk. The principal gave him detention for being a distraction, etc. and his parting words that day were, and tomorrow no blue Mohawk. The next day the kid came in with the same Mohawk, only bright pink. He should have seen this one coming. Yeah, a bright pink Mohawk would be pretty difficult to miss. Just after the Virginia Tech shooting, when I was in high school, the administration banned backpacks, messenger bags. Purses were okay though. One guy shows up to school with a purse. They suspended him for 2 days. The next day, most of the guys showed up with purses carrying all of their things. They lifted the backpack ban. Edit. Looks like it wasn't just my school either. When I've heard of this, the rule is the purse can hold a notebook, which is stupid because a handgun is smaller than a notebook. Elementary school had a ban on extreme hair colors. My brother shows up with fire truck red hair. Principal stops us both as we're entering the school and she's going off on my brother. She's berating him saying, who do you know that has red hair like that? Without skipping a beat, Ronald McDonald. Principal just grabbed him, dragged him into the office. My fourth grade brain was in shock that he just one-upped a grown-up like that. She called my dad, and he promptly didn't give a f***, and months later, bro went from red to green to purple. She called my dad, and the promptly didn't give a f***. This is a delightful turn of phrase. When I was in high school, there was a rule implemented that if you showed up late to school, you had to go to the front office to get a detention slip. You would then have to give it to the teacher for that period, who would then mark it down, and you were required to go to lunch detention for that day. I figured out by the third slip that literally no one cared, teachers, security, or students. So when I was subsequently late for the rest of the year, I would take out an old slip that I had from the previous detention, walk through the school, give it to my teacher to mark down, then take it back to give to the lunch detention supervisor. But I never went to detention because the front office didn't have record of me being late. I was late no less than 50 times my senior year, only having been reprimanded the initial 3 times. I even told my parents about it after I had graduated, and even they agreed it was dumb and funny. My school had a similarly easy to abuse tardy system. 3 tardies less than 10 minutes late equaled an unexcused absence, and you were allowed 13 of those for every class. So that meant you could miss the first 10 minutes of every class 38 times, with no consequences except teachers' annoyance. It also reset at the semester break. No idea why the policy was so lenient, except that it was very upper middle class school full of high achievers who vastly outnumbered slackers like myself. I was at a private school that had rules about the length of boys' hair. One guy in particular always ignored the rule, and the administration would tell him to get a haircut every so often, but he never did. Eventually, when his hair got about down to his shoulders, the principal pulled him aside and told him his hair was twice the allowed length, and by next week it needed to be shortened by half. Monday rolls around, he comes in with half his head shaved, and the other side as long as ever. We were impressed by literal interpretation of the principal's request, but it still ended up with him getting a suspension for a week, and he had to shave the other side before he could come back. He should have just combed the half over. I went to private school that told me I couldn't have hair past my neck. I loved having long hair, so I did it anyway. They told me my hair had to change over the weekend, so I dyed it pink, which was also against the rules. Long story short, I'm no longer at that school. Should have tied the hair and made a bun out of it on top of your scalp. Technically, it wasn't past your neck. After the Columbine shooting, our school banned black trench coats. For the most part, nobody cared except the mysteriously gothic trench coat kid. He had worn a trademark black trench coat every single day because it made him different. And then all of a sudden, the school tells him he can't do that anymore. So the kid went out of his way to find or make different colored trench coat and wore those instead. My favorite one was covered in duct tape. Too long didn't read. Gothic Joseph and the Technicolor trench coat. Reminds me of a guy who came to school every day dressed in old-fashioned formal clothing. Suits, top hats, cravats, fake fur coats. I bumped into him the other day and he's still dressed like that. I'm glad he does. No hats in school. In high school junior year, there was this one kid in my grade that was allowed to do to him having alopecia universalis, which is basically having rapid baldness. A new teacher wasn't aware that he was allowed to and asked him to take it off. The kid explained why he was able to, but the sub didn't believe him, forced him to take it off, and was being very cruel to him for wearing the hat, his lack of hair. The next day, everyone wore hats to school as a sort of rebellion against the teacher. She got really mad and started yelling at the student and said some nasty things. She got fired. Jerk teachers like this are the worst. We had a substitute one day in 7th grade English, and she had us make decorative name tags so she knew how to address us. She asked us to write one phrase that described us under our name. Example, horse girl or health nut. One boy on the lacrosse team wrote legs, bro. She asked him if that was a swear. He laughed because it was a funny question and said no. She took his laughing as proof that he was lying and ordered him to make a new name tag. He said no because it wasn't a swear and he was following the rules. She got so angry she called the head office to prove him wrong and surely get him a detention. The way her face fell when we heard the principal tell her through the phone that it wasn't a swear was priceless. By then, she'd wasted about 20 minutes of class in this endeavor. She ignored him the rest of class, but didn't skimp out on the nasty glares. Some people are far too up themselves.